Kathy, could you be in mute?
Good morning, good afternoon,
Excellent.
Good evening. Very glad to see everybody and follow along on this wild ride with Pablo. I am pleased to help us have our final conversation today about what we saw and to host Anselmi, Kamal, and Kara in a conversation about the cartoons and the headlines. And I think we'll just crack right on. We're going to finish up in time for a closing session by Pablo. And so why don't I ask Anselmi, Kamal, and Kara to come on to camera here and let me see if I can see your shining faces. Are you all in here? Let's see. Pablo, do you want to take down your slide so that we can see the panelists, or perhaps we can change the layout here. There we go. Great. Okay. So to start, it's hard to have a show of hands with hundreds of people, but how many folks have for the first time experienced the cartoons? Definitely the headlines was the first for me. Yes. Yeah, me too, in terms of the interactive nature. And it's really, it's a really different way to understand and see the issues. And I am a big fan of the use of graphics and art and all different ways to communicate this. And these issues are complex and interrelated. And at the Adrienne Arsh Rockefeller Foundation Resilience Center, where I sit at the Atlantic Council in DC, which is a almost 60-year-old foreign policy organization with many centers, some of them focused on certain regions of the world and others are thematic like the Resilience Center. We are focused on reaching 1 billion people with resilient solutions, and we have a big interest in risk and financing tools for disaster risk reduction and for resilience writ large. And I would like to get right into the conversation and ask Anselmi, let me start there, if you would introduce yourself really briefly and then tell me, what did you see in the cartoons or the headlines that struck you as most profound? Anselmi, are you there? All right, maybe on mute? No? Okay, let me go to Kara. Kara, are you there? Pablo, can you see Kara or Anselmi?
I can see Anselmi, but I couldn't hear him. And Anselmi or Kamal, the first one to speak loud enough has the floor.
I think it's Kamal. Hi, Kamal.
So, hi, Kathy. I think several of the cartoons really resonated, and really, they were depicting what we were going through here in the middle of this pandemic coinciding with floods and cyclones and everything. I'll pick on two very quickly. The first one is, where there are two persons talking, and one is saying that you're going to make the same mistakes over and over again. So, and it's really so familiar, every time a disaster happens, we tend to repeat the mistakes that we've made in the past. There is nothing wrong in making mistakes, but every time we made a new one, unfortunately we make the same mistakes again and again. So I'm struggling with it as to how we can actually break that cycle, and really lessons are not forgotten. The second one, where I think this is Pablo, in Pablo's introduction, where, I have a solution for jump and fall, but not for tripping. That's so real in disaster risk management arena, because the disaster that happens is not what you had planned for. But with a little bit of imagination, and if you've practiced enough, you can actually repurpose the tools that you had for something else and are able to successfully manage that. We were able to do that a lot for in COVID-19. Erica Sway will remember 2 years ago we were doing this exercise of coming up with a financing architecture for financing the entire spectrum of disaster risk management needs, and that really came in handy. Although the money was not there for quarantine camps, but because there was a predictable mechanism for supporting local level of government, we were able to repurpose those mechanisms to do that. So those two cartoons really spoke to me, and I can relate my experience. Actually, many more also spoke to me and resonated.
Thank you very much. I have to say I have an affection for the very colorful, looks like a tree or a plant that Peter Cooper did on insurance and the different layers. And we used that for a particular session that we had. And I think you could spend hours really unpacking all of the things within that one single drawing. So they're very effective. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kamala. So let me go over to Kara. I see you there. What did you see? Yes.
Yeah. Sorry for only turning on my camera now. We actually are in also our event, the Global Dialogue Platform on Anticipatory Humanitarian Action. So we had a little bit of a technological challenge. So sorry to join late. And I also was only able to join parts of the previous cartoon watch, but I think I'm quite familiar. I actually want to touch upon also what Kamal already said, and actually what also George Brady said, this collaboration failure leads to anxiety. I think across the different cartoons that we have seen, there's this chain about basically the fear of the unknown, right? Also the uncertainty of the future. I think for us, what speaks to me across the different cartoons is actually the need of collaboration. I think we, especially when we talk about the different sectors, so maybe I forgot to introduce myself. I work for the International Federation of Red Cross, Red Crescent Societies. I coordinate the work on anticipatory action and disaster risk financing. I also have my second hat for the Anticipation Hub. I lead the network and policy thematic area. So, of course, we are working with 192 national societies. So I say that, we are also talking about risk, right? We are talking about current risk, future risk. Although we are, I'd say in terms of sector, maybe not the same sector of many of you here sitting for InsuResilience, but at the essence of it, we are trying to tackle risk. And we're trying to protect those who are most at risk. So again, we are now all together with the UN partners and the NGOs. We're trying to do anticipatory action in 60 countries, where we are trying to basically tackle this issue of collaboration, because we know that in order to do better, to do more, we need to scale up also together. And there's just so much in terms of, let's say, sectoral exchange that we can also learn from the InsuResilience experts and participants. So I think, this failure, the fear of the unknown, getting better at working with the unusual suspects and not just being in your comfort zone is very important. So I think thank you for the opportunity also to invite us, and for those of you who want to promote or get into the more cross-sector collaboration between the humanitarian sector and also InsuResilience partners who are working on actually trying to link how we can plan better, finance better, and do more anticipatory action. So I think those are the things that spoke to me the most. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So let's see if Anselmi's audio is working. Anselmi, can you hear me? All right, I'm going to keep going just to keep us moving. I want to explore a little bit about how this experience, the cartoons and the headlines and the collaboration, how does it help? What do you see that looks or feels different? And just as you said, Kamal, you do the same thing over and over again, and you're going to get the same result. And so we keep making the same mistakes. Did you see any little breakthroughs or any signals in the cartoons or in the headlines that showed a glimmer of something different and a way forward that's different?
I think cartoons this way of exploring problems and using cartoons, what is very powerful about it is that, it really de-jargonizes everything and really gets to the heart of the matter in a very raw fashion. It sort of hurts, but you still laugh. It hurts because it's mostly about, what is not working. But it is so true, and you stop. You can't say that you're not the one who is doing it. It's the others who are doing it, because it's also in a funny way it shows you the mirror. And I think this whole one cartoon in collaboration, it says sometimes I think the collaborative process would work better without you. It is so true. In the context of the pandemic, we've really been thrown out of our comfort zones, and we've had to speak to constituencies we are not used to speaking. And it's uncomfortable. Even within a country, you can actually see a cultural difference between different sectors. So how do you find a way of communicating across those barriers and foster a collaborative process and be aware of your own tendencies as well to remain in your comfort zone? So I really enjoyed going through this process of looking at issues through a humorous angle.
Yeah, I see the ability to poke some fun at ourselves without hurting feelings or without, hurting relationships. And the ability to say some things you just couldn't say. We don't say. I mean, we can say them, but we don't. So that. I really appreciate that. Kara, what do you think?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Kamal said, actually, Kathy. But I think why it is really important is because we are in, December 2020, right? 9 months, no, 12 months after the beginning of the pandemic. Actually, the use. I mean, we are talking about compound risk, but actually we are in that situation. This is not just, something very technical or something theoretical, but we are in it. And I feel that this is also what we're trying to do. And also at the Red Cross, we've been working with Pablo for a long time as well to look at the way to creatively engage, to make people listen across sector, things that they don't normally talk about or listen to. So I think the use of humor, while we are talking about complex context or concepts such as compound risk, and actually being, doing virtual meetings. I don't know about you, but I've attended so many of them, and we switch off and we don't listen. It's because it's being said in the same way, it's presented in the same way. So I think, tackling difficult challenging situation, and living in the so-called compound risk situation that we are in now, I think really, I would say, elevate the importance of having humor, being human, finding that humanity in this very tough situations where we need to, again, work together across sector and actually develop very challenging, maybe huge solutions to challenging, complicated problems, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the headlines, and I know, Kara, you probably weren't able to see or be in that one of the rooms putting together the headlines, but if you were to create a headline yourself, and you didn't need to be in this experiment to create a headline yourself, but also you just hit on something, compounding and interrelated risks, and then the experience world all the time. And I believe that there will be the peer-reviewed science that will explain to us what happened to us and is happening to us as we adapt to living on Zoom, essentially, at least professionally and actually personally, in your birthday parties and anniversaries and things. And yes, the vaccine is coming, and we saw that the British woman, a 90-year-old woman, was the first woman vaccinated with this approved vaccine today. So yes, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but what headline would you craft on, I'd say, on the positive side? I think we have enough negative headlines. We don't need any more. We don't have to make up those. We know what those look like. And so maybe I'll give you a minute to think about that. And Kamal, I'll ask you the same question. What would be that headline? And maybe as this year ends, and there's a phrase that we're using the U.S. to describe 2020. It's a dumpster fire. I mean, it's just a mess. It's such a mess. We call it a dumpster fire. And so there are now all sorts of images of dumpsters burning with 2020 written on it, of course, as the year closes. So as we turn to 2021, what kind of headline would we see to depict that we learned those lessons, that we're not going to make the same mistakes twice, that we do collaborate? So is that enough time for you all to come up with something, or do we want to cover another topic and come back? I'm putting you on the spot. Kamal, what do you think?
I would say that if there was, I can give two headlines, one 10 years from now and one in a year from now. In 10 years from
Love it.
now, I would like to see a headline which says something like that: new pathogen found, put back in the box. So,
yes.
that would be so cool if we were at a level where the collaboration was so unprecedented, we learned from it, and we tracked these things very quickly and put them back in the box. Something like that. And then for this year, I would say that, I would say something to the tune that, something which basically says, a chain of vaccinations surround the virus and trap it back, something like that.
Yes.
Yes. So on the vaccine front, there is so much collaboration, work happening with such great speed, and there are sort of initiatives across the world. And for the first time, it appears that both the developing and developed countries are in the same boat. So if there was a headline in March which said something like that, a chain of vaccines is surrounding and closing in on the virus now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. I like it a lot. How about you, Kara?
Yeah, for a headline, right, Kathy? So I just crafted very quickly one headline. I would like to make my headline be when science and finance work in alliance, it's going to be your extinguisher to avert disaster. So that's my headline.
I like that. Thank you. So let me ask one final question, and that is, through this last year, what is a moment or the moment where you felt most human? This has been such a humanizing year of being, especially at work, when we're in people's living rooms and bedrooms and meeting pets and spouses, and we're experiencing each other differently. And this is such an experience that's so overtaking, and it makes things more authentic. We're seeing people unfiltered, and it's a human experience. And then all of the pieces that go with it of maintaining your mental health and trying to continue with your job and your family and your children and all of the things that we're doing. What has been one of the most human moments for you in this last year? And this could be a work story or a professional story where you felt the humanity of what we're experiencing the most.
At a personal level, I think I want to meet a person who hasn't been touched by it, who doesn't know who is being affected by COVID, or who doesn't know somebody who knows somebody. So by 2 degrees or even 1 degree of separation, we know everyone. But professionally, I think the most humanizing thing was, the most humanly touching thing was when the cyclones were occurring in May and June in India, and we were deploying responders. And for the first time, we were worried about the safety of responders themselves. Normally when you respond, the cyclone has already, made a landfall or is about to make a landfall, and your people are protected, or at least they've been trained to protect themselves. This was something we very new. 100 of our responders got infected, tested COVID-19. Thankfully, all of them recovered. Mm-hmm. But it was really a tough call. You knew that you were putting these people, in in a very uncertain situation where you didn't exactly know how they're going to be. Of course, you took all the precautions, but that was really tough.
Yeah, thank you. How about you, Cara?
So I guess this one is a mix between professional and personal, Kathy. So I think about January this year, we were basically discussing again this interagency coordination between us and OCHA colleagues and World Food Program and our colleagues in Bangladesh to say, okay, we have anticipatory action plans for against flood. So using forecast and risk analysis to trigger financing. At the time, of course, we heard about the pandemic already, Kathy. It was on the news, but we were still not thinking too much. We said, okay, we're going to go to Dhaka. So again, still the same region as Kamal experienced a story just now. So we said, okay, we're going to go to Dhaka, the New York team, myself. We have all this plan to travel. And then suddenly, by March, we realized that it was not happening. But a lot of us thought, okay, we are not going to have this plan in place before the monsoon season. This is impossible. Working between Rome and Geneva and New York and Dhaka, how is that possible? But we actually managed, so the OCHA colleagues managed to, based on the collaboration, to put up this big anticipatory action plan to scale up what we had with WFP previously. And it's amazing. And I think this of course, it's a joint effort, but I saw that there's just a lot of humanity put into the work. So they say, okay, we don't want the communities there to be caught off guard, I mean, our national societies or the partners of the UN agency to be caught off guard if there's a big flood coming. We have already something in place. We want to scale it up. And it's people who are not being, let's say, who didn't mind being called at odd hours because of the different time zone, because they see the need. And it's this combination of individuals who said that we need to do this. And in July, of course, when the big flood happened, we were able to anticipate that, both using the Red Cross mechanism and the UN mechanism. So this is my inspiration for this year, because of the professional part, but again, the human part, which just wanted to pour the efforts, again, the compound risk. You can imagine also providing this during a pandemic. So the volunteers in Bangladesh had to, of course, take precautions, but we were able to do that. So again, bringing to the concept and the context again. Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, this is a year of professional and personal blending, very much so. So let me ask one final question. We've just got just maybe 2 or 3 minutes left. What's the one piece of advice that you would give to the disaster risk financing community at this moment in time? As you look to 2021 and see what's ahead, what's the one piece of advice you would give to this community? Come on.
So I think the first piece of advice I will give, the only one piece of advice I will give you while designing a finance mechanism, talk to the communities, talk to what is needed, talk to what kind of assistance when is best. I think the more we can hear voices from the ground, the better we can design our instruments.
That is profound. Cara, how about you?
Can I say copy paste?
You could say, yeah, ditto.
Ditto, but of course, for the Red Cross, it's very important for us to make sure that the last mile component is always first and forefront in what we do. And again, really, there's a lot of innovations, there's a lot of solutions being developed at the moment, but let's try together to make sure that what we are developing jointly or in coordination with each other really makes the most impact. And totally, of course, that's why we are here. Looking at compound risk, let's try to share better data and better ways on maybe exchanging the different tools between the humanitarian community and the disaster risk financing community. Well, we are also part of that community, but I would say more on the development side. Can we try to really do more and better and reach more people together? So thanks, Kathy.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think we're going to close the panel and I'll hand it back to Pablo, but thank you very much to Kamal and Cara for joining us. And Selmi, I'm sorry we weren't able to connect, but we will see you in the next round. And back over to you, Pablo. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Kathy. And thank you, panelists. This has been so refreshing. There was a spontaneity, there was a joy, there was a candor that was exactly the kind of level of engagement that we were aspiring to. We're very grateful to you, panelists, for accepting jumping into the unknown, which in a way mimics what awaits us in this planet, right? We don't know what is coming. This is about decision making under uncertainty. And you, dear panelists, plus Kathy, have illustrated what it means to coexist with uncertainty and being ready to roll, to shine, to do what can be done. Now, we are going to wrap up this session, and I have some news for you. Let's see if I can push the buttons, because as always, my incompetence can manifest with most force in the last few minutes. Let's see if I can go into share screen. And I believe this is the one that I have. Yes, wrap up and closing session. I assume you can see this slide. So what has happened? We have heard from speakers. We have heard about what we're here for. We also saw some cartoons that primed your pump, that primed your candor, that enabled you to see into the future with new eyes. And you have successfully created, I think it was about 35 headlines. I know that for many of you, it must have been frustrating, because by design, we wanted you to experience what it means to be confused when someone comes to talk to you about insurance instruments and so on. Now, look at these headlines. Some of them are really awesome. I just highlighted a few. Major Joint Forecast Report Saving the World. Can you imagine that headline in an actual newspaper? The team that wrote this really knows how to make fun of ourselves, because we tend to channel reports as if they were the thing that will save the world. Of course, they set foundations. But what is a good headline? Policy Climate brought together a caring community. Lovely. We need more caring. And caring is kindness, and kindness includes clarity. If we speak in confusing ways, it's like we don't care for the audience. And we have explored with these panelists, with these modalities, new ways. The puzzle of engagement is jeopardizing human existence. Wow. It's so true. How are we going to engage? It's puzzling. Government, private sector, civil society, UN organizations, donors, journalists. How are we going to engage in a way that makes a positive difference? Insurance solutions encourage cooperation of majority sharecroppers. Again, especially when insurance is a key that unlocks access to something good, like improved seeds for better harvest and so on. The last one in this list, someone must have written the word bumblebee as an ingredient, because the headline was Bumblebees Disregard Cyclone Research. Ah! Now, what do you do with that headline? Well, I'm happy to report that our cartoon artists read your headlines and in no time created cartoons. Look at this. Thank you, Kendra. Bumblebees Disregard Cyclone Report, and the bumblebee is thinking of, that's their problem, not your problem. You know, we can articulate things in the way forward. There's another one by Peter Cooper about successfully fighting the drought. What does it take? Well, it takes water, but it also takes implements that are not only physical, like a water can or water itself. It's also the organizational structures that we heard from Zoe, that we heard from Ekoswehi, that we heard from Kathy and the panelists. How can we make this happen in a context where the horizon is very concerning? We're transitioning towards the dark, but we need to seek illumination. There are many more. I know that the InsuResilience Secretariat will celebrate draft cartoons as they are finalized by the artist over the coming day or two. Now, as we wrap up, we have 5 minutes or so to go. let me refresh your memory about tomorrow. Tomorrow, the focus of the InsuResilience annual forum will be on regional learning. There will be a session involving Asia, a session about Africa, another one Latin America. If you want Pacific, you can get plenty of that with Fiji. Do join. Today, there will be a side event at Central European Time, 3:30, which is coming soon, after the rains, before the drought. Experiences from the first replica payouts of the Africa Risk Capacity Replica. If you're not familiar with this, it's a fascinating combination of stakeholders, combination of scientific, technological, financial instruments, WFP, the START networks, and KfW, and many others. And you're warmly invited to make use of Risk Talk. The secretariat, the InsuResilience secretariat, has kindly enabled all of us to jump forces, to be part of something where there's a lasting imprint to our insight, our questions, our suggestions, our proposed way forward. This is what we were talking about. We have been talking about decision making under uncertainty, but not only talking, we've had to confront it. We've had to go through a new gallery experience with cartoons. You have kindly annotated them, and by the way, if you have your browser handy, you can still make use of that and go view what other colleagues have written. Daniel, if you want to type, I see that someone hasn't received the login information. If you want to type in the chat room how people can access the cartoon gallery and view the comments, I assume that will remain available. And again, as mentioned, the Secretariat will, in due time, share the ideas, the concepts, the comments, the cartoons, the headlines that have emerged in this session. We have spoken about uncertainty. We don't know. We certainly don't have the perfect crystal ball that looks into the future. But we do know that the future is coming, and is coming with new flavors. It's coming with more pronounced hazards that we're familiar with, and it's bringing hazards that we're not familiar with. Think of the forest fires in the West Coast, a scale that was completely unprecedented. A tropical cyclone recently hitting Somalia. There's conflict, armed conflict going on, and on top of that, I mean, how are we going to manage this? We really need all of us to do things differently, to make things happen. This climate and disaster risk environment is changing, and not only the hazards are changing, we, the members of the InsuResilience Global Partnership, are also changing. We are changing because we learn from each other. We're changing because we learn from what is happening in the planet, and we bring our ideas, our tensions, our desires, our appetites, our offers together. So here's what we're going to do in the 2 minutes that are remaining. Open your chat, and over the coming 60 seconds, let's invite everyone to write one of two things. You can either write a thing that happened over the past 2 hours that you found memorable, noteworthy, perplexing, celebratory. Write something that happened, or write something that you intend to make happen, either through your own actions or through, hopefully, the work of others. What do you see? What do you think? Seeing cartoons is what some people are saying. Some people are saying hilarious. I love that, de-jargonize. Not just about black swans, these exceptionally strong and strange extreme events, but also Murphy's Law. Thank you, Gabor. Murphy's Law, whatever can go wrong will go wrong sooner or later. Are we prepared? Friends, this has been quite a ride. We've put you in uncomfortable places beyond your comfort zone. On behalf of the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center that I belong to, and on behalf of all of us, the panelists, the humorists, thank you so much to colleagues at the InsuResilience Secretariat Ida, Divine, you've been so kind and hardworking. Astrid, you've created the space. There's more. There's much more coming. There's 2 more days of this annual forum. There's a lifetime awaiting us to manage changing multi-hazard climate and disaster risks. Hopefully we'll find a way forward together. And it is now top of the hour. Thank you all so much for being with us. There shall be more. Over.